Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today on Face Off, we are going to be asking the question, what is the better Doctor Who horror story? Season 15's The Horror of Fang Rock, or Season 18's Out of Place but Still Amazing, State of Decay? Both are excellent horror stories that I enjoy, but my question when I put this up on the poll, because I do always put the Face Off videos, the polls up first, so I can find out not only what I think, which I already know, but also what you guys think. Well, this one's getting away from me, isn't it? And between the two, it's hard for me to pick. Now, the options, of course, were Horror, Fang Rock, State of Decay, and then the third option was that the difference is so small, it's almost a tie. Which is, if I was voting, the one I would have voted for, because I love both stories. Horror, Fang Rock's my favorite story from Season 15, which is a mixed season. It has some really good stories, some really bad stories. And then State of Decay is far and away my favorite story of Season 18. It's the masterpiece of the season for me. Though I enjoy most of Season 18. Pretty much everything except the Leisure Hive, which is still watchable. It's really hard for me because I love both of these stories. I've seen State of Decay more because I actually own it. I don't own Horror of Fang Rock. I'm really looking forward to that Season 15 box set. But I have seen it multiple times and I very much enjoy it. Now, if you were to ask me which one was better, that's a hard choice. But if you had a gun to my head and was making me choose between which one was better, objectively, I would say the Horror of Fang Rock. I would definitely say the Horror of Fang Rock. State of Decay has one part that doesn't quite work for me, and that's when they kill off the Vampire King with the ship. The way that is executed doesn't quite work with just the hand reaching up and the rocket turning, and it doesn't work. It's not executed well. It is one of those moments where even my willy suspension of disbelief that's normally firmly in place for Classic Who, because it's Classic Who, has issues there. That part always bugs me when I watch it. I feel like it could have been executed better. However, right after that, we have the death scene with the three, when the three die. That's executed very, very well, and it happens immediately afterwards. So I'm already immediately brought back up with, hey, that's pretty impressive. So they have a really bad thing and then a really good thing. And then, of course, that scene earlier when they first, see the Vampire King, underground with his wings, that looks really bad, too. Whereas Horror of Fang Rock really just has some kind of cheap modeling effects that we could always hopefully get a special edition of, and maybe some updated CGI effects that can clean that up. There are some model shots of the lighthouse and the ship crashing into the dock that are classic Who-y, but they're fine. I mean, the story's so good, it's fine. If we never get a special edition of it, I'm fine. It's one of those things I take note of, but they don't bother me, unlike in State of Decay, where those two things I just mentioned do bother me. So because of that, I'd give it to Horror of Fang Rock. Now, if you were to pull the gun back and go, yeah, Prowl, that makes sense, and then you put the gun back to my head and say, which one do you like watching more? Well, then you're just going to have to shoot me, because I can't make up my mind. I love both of those stories. It'd be really hard for me to rank them. I'm very fond of both of them. Again, I've seen State of Decay more, so I'm a little more familiar with it. I am very much looking forward to getting the Season 15 box set so I can watch Horror again, because the last time I watched it, one of my subscribers who had just joined my Patreon, his video request, because all of my patrons get, at any tier level, get a free video request. He had requested for me to rewatch and review Horror of Fang Rock. So I had looked it up online and found a decent quality video of it, and gave it a rewatch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, between the two, I think Horror of Fang Rock is the better story. But I like watching them, I'd say, equally, even though they're both horror, and they both do horror well, but they're still vastly different. The guest cast are good in both, but I think better in horror, probably, although that one woman with her incessant screaming kind of drags it back down equal to State of Decay. The atmosphere and creepiness and tension is definitely better in horror. You really do feel like they're on an isolated island, trapped. And I believe that is the story where Tom's like, I've made a terrible mistake. I thought I locked it out. Instead, I've locked it in with us. And the thing is actually in the lighthouse with them, and they can't get out. So it's kind of like alien. They're trapped on a spaceship with an alien. Similar here. There's nowhere they can go to escape it. They're just trapped with it. And it's really neat. The glowing green light in it is very effective and creepy looking. I love that. And Tom and Leela are just so good together. Which I like Tom with Romana and Adric, because Adric's actually pretty good with Tom. I like them as well, but for me, I love Tom and Leela better. I've never been the biggest fan of Romana too. So that one works more. And y'all mostly agreed. Let me put on my eyeballs here. It's weird. It used to be when I was reading something, I had to hold it closer to read it better without my glasses. Now it's getting to where I have to hold things further away to read them better. Biology's weird. And you guys seem to have agreed, because the vote y'all did here, it's staggeringly one-sided. The Horror of Fang Rock took 78% of the vote. State of Decay took 12%, and the difference is so small it's almost a tie, took 11%. So Horror of Fang Rock won by a landslide. And I figured that might happen, because I do feel like most people consider horror the better of the two. I think what really hurts State of Decay is the fact it's in Season 18. And while it would fit in really well in Season 13, 14, or 15, it's very out of place in the more science-y Season 18. And I really think that hurts it more than anything. So I was kind of hoping maybe I would be wrong and more people would vote for State of Decay. Figured there might be an upset there, but no, 78% went Horror of Fang Rock, only 12% State of Decay, with 11% saying it was practically a tie. Let's see what some of y'all have to say about it. Now, Dom, who wrote, this is probably the shortest thing I've ever seen Dom post. He wrote Fang Rock, amazing characters, great atmosphere, and a really tight structure. Personal favorite of mine, and probably a top 5 story for the Fourth Doctor, in my opinion. And I can see that. I definitely think horror is one of the best Tom Baker stories, especially post-Hinchcliffe era. Really, really good. Nicholas Smith says, while I like State of Decay, Horror of Fang Rock has great atmosphere, a brilliant villain that we haven't seen again, and Tom Baker is on top form. Also, one of the first Classic Who stories I've seen, and even rewatching it now, it's still great. I agree. Ham, one of my regulars, Ham's actually the one whose patron request was for me to rewatch Horror of Fang Rock. I knew how he was going to vote in this one. He said, I think both are utter masterpieces, but Fang Rock for me just flows flawlessly. State of Decay, even though I love it, there are 1 or 2 scenes that aren't as engaging. I agree, as I just talked about. The scene rescuing Adric is an example. Fang Rock feels cinematic to me, to the point. Bring on the Blu-ray. Agreed. One of my other regulars, Bobby, says, another easy one. Fang Rock was the last great horror in the epilogue of the golden Hinchcliffe years. Perfectly understandable. I can perfectly understand people mistaking Horror of Fang Rock for like a Season 13 or Season 14 story, because it does feel like a Hinchcliffe story. It is almost like Robert Holmes is beginning the process of handing over the torch to a softer era not suited to his talents. State of Decay is the weakest of the East-Space trilogy. I completely disagree with that, though I do very much enjoy Warrior's Gate and I like Full Circle. Pete Moffat, rest his soul, was not the best Doctor Who director. He worked well with actors, but his shots were very static and slow, and he found sci-fi hard to follow. This is actually supported by something Peter Moffat said in an interview, where originally they took the original script for State of Decay and they changed it. They rewrote it to make it more in line with Season 18, which Terrence Dicks didn't like. And but Peter Moffat saw the revised script and said, this isn't what I agreed to. I don't like this. And so they went back to the original script, which Peter and Terrence much liked. He actually, even said it here, he actually petitioned for this script to be a lot less futuristic. Yeah, they went back to the original script. State of Decay was supposed to come earlier in place of Fang Rock. That's true. But the BBC did not want vampires as they were making Dracula at the time. That's exactly what I hear. They did not want State of Decay back during Season 15 or so because they were working on their own Dracula production. Let's see. Simon says, State of Decay is underrated, but Fang Rock is a legitimate classic that introduces the Routons, at least to where we actually see them. I think they've been mentioned before. Base Under Siege, thrill-a-minute adventure with the 4th Doctor and Leela at their best. I like that. Base Under Siege, thrill-a-minute adventure. That's a great way to describe that. No comparison between the two, in my opinion. Fair enough. Bananas are good. Who's also one of my regulars I see all the time. Plus, I just love his screen name. Bananas are good. It's a great Doctor Who reference. He said, both stories are great, but 70s horror is creepier than 80s horror. As someone whose ringtone is Tubular Bells from The Exorcist, I have to agree. And then Stephen Crane, who is not only one of my subscribers, but one of my top tier patrons as well, says, Horror of Fang Rock is the perfect trapped with the horror story. I agree. State of Decay is trying to invoke the then passé Hammer Dracula. Let's see, yeah. I like that. Perfect trapped with the horror story. That's a good way to put that. Let's see. And that seems to be what everybody has written on that thus far. Something else that popped up I was looking at. Bananas are good are commenting on another video. My season 16 versus 17 video I was reading. So, yes, Horror of Fang Rock by a landslide, 78%. I would like to know what you think of Horror of Fang Rock and what you think of State of Decay. If you think it's underrated, if you like it, if you don't. So comment down below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. I'd like to know what you think of this Face-Off video series so far. It seems to be my Friday video. That seems to be my thing. Face-Off Friday, I guess we'll call it. That seems to be what I'm doing there. So I'd like to know your thoughts. Comment down below. Other things to do. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. Click the bell for notifications so we never miss out on another video. I just crossed over 700 subscribers today as I'm recording this. Very excited about that. On the way to 800 now. So if you do watch these videos and you haven't subscribed yet, I'd appreciate you hitting that button. I mention that because I just got a notice right before I started doing this video from one of my commenters who's down there all the time, you know, for a while, months and months and months, and it said, you know, they just subscribed to my channel, and I'm like, I figured they would have months ago or a while back because they're always in my comments. So if you watch my videos a lot and you enjoy them and you haven't subscribed yet, I'd like to earn that subscription today, so go ahead and click that button. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There is a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to two of my top tier patrons, the 5th Doctor and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their support, just as I appreciate the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything Doctor Who related or sci-fi related or otherwise you would like to send me, there is a link to that. Not a link to that. That itself is actually down in the description below. And a link to my Amazon wish list, which has recently been updated, is down there as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.